The high five. It is a simple gesture. Two hands meet in the air. A slap, a clap, a moment of shared energy. We see it everywhere. Sports fields, school hallways, business meetings. It marks a small victory, a big success, or just a friendly hello. It feels like it has always been there, like breathing or walking, but it has not. Someone somewhere at some point had the idea to lift their hand and meet another's in that specific way. And the world copied it. For something so common, so automatic, its beginning is not so clear. It is not like the light bulb, invented by Thomas Edison, or the telephone by Alexander Graham Bell. There is no single person, no single date, no single place everyone agrees on for the high five. It is a bit like tracing the origin of a joke. Everyone knows it, but who told it first? That is the question many people ask when they think about the high five. When did this universal symbol of celebration first appear? Who was the first to extend their palm upwards and say, "Give me five"? I think it is easy to imagine it just happened naturally. People have celebrated things forever. They hug, they pat backs, they shake hands. It seems a short jump from these actions to slapping hands in the air, but there is a difference. A pat on the back is an older gesture. A handshake is ancient, a sign of trust and peace. The high five feels different. It has an energy, a shared joy that is unique. It is often spontaneous, a burst of feeling. This makes its origin story interesting because it challenges the idea that it was just an obvious next step. It felt new, fresh when it first appeared. This simple act, the high five, has a surprising depth to its story. It is not just about a hand meeting another hand. It is about culture, sports, human connection, and how small things can spread and become huge parts of our daily lives. It tells us something about how people express themselves and how those expressions become part of a shared language. The story of the high five is not a grand historical narrative of kings and wars. It is a humble story of everyday people, mostly athletes, finding new ways to connect and celebrate. The search for its inventor leads us to a few strong contenders. There are popular stories, specific moments caught on camera, or remembered by those who were there. And there are also earlier, lesser known examples that might point to a slower, more gradual development. It is a puzzle with a few different pieces that fit together in different ways depending on how you look at it. There is no single, agreed upon answer carved in stone, but there is a most accepted version, a moment that stands out more than others. This moment often involves two men in baseball, a sport known for its traditions and its occasional bursts of innovation. Their story is probably the most famous claim to the high five's birth, but before we get to them, it is important to understand the landscape. What was happening before the high five took over? What kind of gestures did people use to celebrate? And why did this one in particular catch on so strongly? It is a small piece of human history, but a meaningful one. The high five is more than just a gesture. It is a piece of cultural shorthand. It says, "Good job. We did it. I am with you." It crosses language barriers. You can be anywhere in the world, and if someone offers you a high five, you likely know what it means. This universal understanding is part of what makes its origin so fascinating. It spread globally without any marketing campaign, without any official launch. It spread through imitation, through the simple act of people seeing it and liking it and doing it themselves. It is a testament to the power of human connection and the way we pick up on and adopt new ways to express ourselves. And so, to unravel this story, we have to look back. We have to consider the moments and the people who might have unknowingly given us this global phenomenon. We will explore the most talked about origin, the moment in baseball that many point to as the true beginning. But we will also look at other possibilities, other claims that show the idea might have been floating around in different places before it truly caught fire. It is a journey through sports history and social custom, all centered on a very simple, very effective way to show shared joy. This search helps us appreciate that even the smallest parts of our daily lives have a history, and sometimes those histories are richer and more complex than we first imagine. It is a cool story, really, for such a simple hand slap. The most famous story about the high five, the one most people remember or have heard, points to professional baseball. Specifically, it points to a game in 1977. The date was October 2nd. The teams were the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Houston Astros. The setting was Dodger Stadium. It was the last game of the regular season for the Dodgers. They had already won their division. They were going to the playoffs. There was a relaxed, celebratory mood in the air even before the big moment happened. The man at the plate was Dusty Baker. He was a solid outfielder for the Dodgers, known for his consistent hitting. In the sixth inning, Baker hit a home run. It was his 30th home run of the season. This was a big deal at the time. It made him the fourth Dodger that year to hit 30 home runs. That was a record for any team in baseball. So it was a moment of special achievement, not just for Baker, but for the whole team. As Baker rounded the bases and headed toward home plate, he was greeted by his teammate, Glenn Burke. Burke was a young, promising outfielder. He was also a good friend of Baker's. As Baker approached, Burke raised his hand high above his head. It was an unusual gesture. Most players would shake hands or give a low five or just pat each other on the back. But Burke did something different. He held his hand up, palm facing out, waiting. Dusty Baker, seeing Burke's hand in the air, instinctually slapped it. Not down low, not a handshake, but high up, meeting Burke's raised palm with his own. It was a loud, sharp slap. A clear sound, a distinct motion. It was not planned, it was spontaneous, a burst of shared joy. Baker himself later recalled the moment. He said he did not know what Burke was doing at first. But he went with it, he met the hand, and in that second, something new was born. This was the moment, many argue, the high five truly began. It was caught on video. It was seen by people in the stadium and watching on TV. It looked fresh, it looked exciting, and it perfectly captured the feeling of celebration. It was more expressive than a pat on the back, more energetic than a low five. It was a statement. We did it. This is great. Glenn Burke, the man who initiated it, had a unique spirit. He was known for his charisma and his sometimes unconventional ways. He was also, at the time, secretly gay, in an era when being openly gay in professional sports was unthinkable. Many years later, Burke would become the first Major League Baseball player to openly come out as gay after his playing career ended. Some historians and people close to Burke believe that the high five for him was more than just a gesture. It was a way to connect, to express himself, to bring a sense of joy and freedom to the game. It was a bold move in a world that often demanded conformity. Dusty Baker remembers it clearly. He recalls the feeling of connection. His hand was up in the air, and he was so happy, Baker told reporters years later. It was just a natural thing to do. Baker did not invent it, he says. Burke started it. And Baker finished it. Together, they made it happen. And because it was such a big moment, a record-setting home run, and because it was caught on film, it stuck. It became a powerful image. The Dodgers were a good team. They went on to the World Series that year, though they lost to the New York Yankees. But their season was memorable. And this particular moment, the high five between Baker and Burke, started to get noticed. Other players saw it. They started to try it. It became a way for the Dodgers to celebrate. It became a team thing. And from there, it started to spread. It is important to understand the context of this moment. Before 1977, there was no widely recognized gesture called the high five. People might have slapped hands in the air playfully or casually in some settings. But it was not a named, established, celebrated gesture. It did not have the cultural weight it gained after this Dodgers moment. This was the first time it seemed to appear on a big stage, in a way that made people sit up and notice. It looked like an innovation. The impact of this single event cannot be overstated. When something new and cool happens in professional sports, it has a way of trickling down. Young players see it, fans see it, and they want to do it too. It becomes a trend. The high five was no different. It offered a fresh, exciting way to show triumph and team spirit. It was simple, it was clean, and it was easy to copy. Burke himself said he believed he invented it. He would often tell the story of that game. He felt that he brought something unique to the game, something that connected people. And he was right. The high five is a simple act, but it carries a lot of meaning. It is a symbol of shared success. It is a symbol of camaraderie, and for Burke, perhaps, it was also a quiet way of making his own mark, of expressing his vibrant personality in a world that often tried to dim it. So, while there might be earlier instances of people slapping hands up high, the 1977 moment between Dusty Baker and Glenn Burke is often cited as the true birth of the high five as we know it. It was a public debut, a moment that grabbed attention and started a phenomenon. It gave the gesture a name and a context. It showed people how to do it and what it meant. And from that day forward, the high five began its journey to becoming a universal sign of celebration and connection, first in sports, then far beyond. It was a small act, but it had a very big impact. It gave the world a new way to say, awesome. And it all started with a home run and a raised hand in Dodger Stadium. While the Dusty Baker and Glenn Burke story is the one most people point to, it is also true that many things are invented more than once, or they evolve over time. The high five might be one of those things. There are other stories, other moments that some people say could be the real origin, or at least important steps along the way. These stories show that the idea of slapping hands in the air might have been floating around in different places before it really took off with the Dodgers. One of the strongest alternative claims comes from the world of basketball. In the early 1970s, specifically in the 1970 to 1971 season, there was a basketball team at a college in Louisville, Kentucky. It was called the Cardinals. And on that team, there were two players, Wiley Brown and Derek Smith. They had a special handshake. Like, they would clap hands above their heads. They called it the high five. This was well before the Dodgers incident. Brown and Smith used their high five throughout their college basketball careers. They even used it when they went on to play professionally. They claim this was the origin. And they have some good evidence, including old yearbooks and people who remember them doing it. Their story suggests that the term high five and the gesture itself were in use within a specific community college basketball years before it showed up in Major League Baseball. This makes their claim pretty strong. It shows that the idea was out there, being practiced, and even named by athletes in a different sport. Then there is the earlier, more general idea of giving five. This was a common expression and gesture for a long time before the high five. Give me five usually meant a low five, a handshake where you slapped hands down low. It was a sign of agreement or camaraderie. Think of it as the older sibling of the high five. This low five was often used in music culture, among jazz musicians for example, as a cool way to greet someone or acknowledge a good performance. It also appeared in street culture, so the jump from low five to high five might seem small, but it was a significant change in height and energy. It changed the meaning a bit too. The low five felt more casual, more intimate. The high five felt more celebratory, more public. It took the hand slap and elevated it, literally. Some people also talk about similar gestures in other sports. In volleyball, for example, players often slap hands above the net after a good play. This has been going on for a long time. It is a way to acknowledge a point, to show team spirit. Was it called a high five then? Maybe not explicitly, but the action was similar, of hands meeting in the air. This suggests that the basic motion might have developed independently in different athletic contexts where quick, visible celebrations were needed. You can also find examples of military personnel slapping hands above their heads, sometimes to mark a success, sometimes as a morale booster. Again, not necessarily called a high five at the time, but the action was there. This shows how universal the urge to connect and celebrate is, and how a simple hand slap can fulfill that need. The question then becomes, what counts as the invention? Is it the very first time someone anywhere at any time happened to slap a hand high in the air? That would be almost impossible to trace. Or is it the first time it was named, popularized, and widely adopted? Most often, when we talk about inventions, we mean the latter. We mean the moment it entered the public consciousness and started to spread. This is why the Baker and Burke story holds so much weight. It was televised, it was tied to a major achievement in a major sport. It had a spotlight on it. The Louisville basketball story is compelling because it has the name and the earlier date. But it might have been more contained within that specific team or university before it broke out into the wider world. It might have been a local invention that just did not spread as quickly or widely until another, more public event brought the idea to the forefront. Think of it like this many people might have made a flying machine before the Wright brothers. But the Wright brothers are credited with inventing the airplane because they were the first to make a controlled, sustained flight and publicize it, leading to its development and widespread adoption. It is about the impact and the spread, not just the first flicker of an idea. So while Wiley Brown and Derek Smith certainly have a strong claim to an earlier use and naming of the high five within basketball, the baseball moment is generally seen as the tipping point. It was the moment that really launched the gesture into the mainstream. It got the ball rolling, so to speak, for the high five to become a global phenomenon. It is also possible that all these stories are true in their own way, that the idea of slapping hands up high was in the air, so to speak, in different communities, that it was a natural evolution of celebration. And then, at different points, specific people in specific contexts gave it a name and a public face. The high five might be a collective invention rather than the work of one person. It could be that the human spirit, in its need to celebrate, kept finding this gesture, and eventually one of those moments clicked with the larger culture. And it is a reminder that culture is organic, always growing and changing, and even the smallest gestures have complex histories. Once the high five started showing up in prominent places like Major League Baseball and college basketball, it did not take long for it to spread. It was like wildfire, but it was a slow burn at first, then a rapid explosion. This part of the story is about how a simple gesture went from a few athletes to almost everyone on the planet. The first place it really took hold was, of course, in sports. Other baseball teams saw the Dodgers doing it. They liked the look of it. It was flashy. It was fun. It seemed to boost team morale. So they started doing it too. It was a visible sign of teamwork and success. This ripple effect is common in sports. One team does something cool, and others copy it. Soon, it became common across baseball. Players would hit a home run or make a great play and expect a high five from their teammates in the dugout or coming off the field. From baseball, it quickly moved into other sports. Basketball, which already had some high five like gestures, fully embraced it. Football players started doing it. Volleyball players, as mentioned before, already had similar actions, but now they had a name for it. The high five became a universal language of celebration across all athletic fields. It was quick, it was easy, and it transmitted energy. Coaches even encouraged it. They saw it as a way to build team spirit and show positive reinforcement, but the high five did not stay locked up in the world of sports. Like popular slang or fashion trends, things that start in one place often move into the broader culture. As young people especially are quick to pick up on new trends. Kids watching sports on TV saw their heroes giving high fives. Or they wanted to be like them, so they started doing it on the playground, in school, and with their friends. It became a way to celebrate good grades, a clever remark, or just to say hello. The movies and TV shows also played a huge role in its spread. As the high five became more common in real life, it started showing up in popular culture. Characters in sitcoms would high five each other. Action heroes would high five after defeating a villain. This helped to normalize the gesture even further. It showed people outside of sports that the high five was a cool, acceptable way to interact. It gave people permission, almost, to use it in their everyday lives. It was no longer just for athletes, it was for everyone. The 1980s were a big decade for the high five. It really exploded during this time. It moved from being a novel gesture to a common one. It was a sign of the times, too. The 80s were a time of big hair, big shoulder pads, and big celebrations. The high five fit right in with that energetic, optimistic spirit. It was a simple, upbeat way to connect. The simplicity of the high five is a big part of why it spread so fast. It does not require any special equipment. It does not require a lot of explanation. Two hands meet. That is it. It is also universal. You do not need to speak the same language as someone to share a high five. The meaning is clear. Good job. We're connected. That was great. This universal understanding allowed it to cross cultural boundaries and become a global phenomenon. Think about how many times you have seen a high five in different parts of the world, even in places where people might not speak English or follow American sports. It is everywhere. That is a testament to its power and its simplicity. It is an act of non-verbal communication that everyone understands. And it evolved too. While the classic high five is just two hands meeting in the air, variations started to appear. Now there is the too slow high five where one person pulls their hand away at the last second. There is the fake out, where you pretend to high five but then switch to a low five or a handshake. These variations show that the high five was not just copied, it was adapted and played with, which is a sure sign of its widespread acceptance. People felt comfortable enough with the gesture to start making it their own. The high five also became a symbol for different movements and causes. For example, during the AIDS epidemic, when touch was sometimes feared, the high five became a way for people to show support and connection without direct skin-to-skin contact, making it a safe way to express solidarity. And Glenn Burke, one of the presumed inventors, died of AIDS. The gesture, for some, took on an even deeper meaning related to his life and the struggles of his community. So, the high five's journey from a spontaneous moment in a baseball game or an early basketball court to a global gesture is a fascinating one. It highlights how quickly social norms can change and how powerful the influence of sports and popular culture can be. It is a reminder that even the smallest, most casual acts of human interaction can become deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness. The high five did not just spread, it became an essential part of how we celebrate, how we acknowledge, and how we connect with each other. It is a simple gesture with a very rich and expansive story of adoption. So, who invented the high five? After looking at the stories, it is clear there is not one single, easy answer. It is messy. Like many things in life, the truth is not always a neat package, but we can draw some pretty strong conclusions. The most famous and widely accepted origin points to that moment in 1977, Dusty Baker and Glenn Burke during a Dodgers game celebrating a home run. Now, Burke reached up. Baker slapped his hand. It was on film, it was on TV, it was seen by many. This moment gave the high five its biggest push into the public eye. It gave it a specific image, a specific name, and a clear context for its use. For many, this is the true birth of the high five as we know it today. Burke himself firmly believed he was the one who started it, and his story holds a lot of weight because of his unique personality and the way he made a very public and new gesture. But then there are other claims. The Louisville Cardinals basketball players, Wiley Brown and Derek Smith, using their high five years earlier, even naming it. This is a very compelling counter-argument. It shows that the gesture, and even the name, was in use before the famous baseball moment. It was happening in a different sport, in a different region, a few years before. This suggests that the idea was not entirely unique to the Dodgers. What does this mean? It is very likely that similar gestures, hands meeting high in the air, were happening in various places in various sports for a while. People are always looking for new ways to celebrate, to connect. It is a natural human tendency. The difference between the earlier examples and the Dodgers moment is often about popularization. An invention is not just about being first. It is about being first in a way that truly matters, that catches on, that starts a trend. The Dodgers moment, because it was in professional baseball, televised, and tied to a record-setting achievement, had a much bigger platform. It was the moment that truly launched the high five into the mainstream. It solidified its place in popular culture. So, while Wiley Brown and Derek Smith might have been doing it and calling it the high five first, Glenn Burke and Dusty Baker were the ones who truly introduced it to the world in a way that made it stick. It is a bit like how people might have been experimenting with flight for centuries, but the Wright brothers were the ones who made it work and started the aviation age. The impact matters as much as the initial spark. The high five is more than just a gesture. It has become a symbol. It represents shared success, teamwork, and camaraderie. It is a quick, clear burst of positive energy. It cuts across cultures and languages. You can give a high five to a stranger, and both of you will understand what it means. This universal appeal is what makes its journey so interesting. It became a global phenomenon without any marketing, without any conscious effort to spread it. It spread organically through people seeing it, liking it, and copying it. It also reminds us how cultural phenomena evolve. They often start small, in specific communities, then they are picked up by a wider audience. Then they become so common that we forget they ever had a beginning. The high five is a perfect example of this. Most people use it daily without ever wondering where it came from, but when you look closely, you find a rich history, full of different people and different moments, all contributing to this one simple yet powerful act of human connection. The story of the high five also gives us a glimpse into the people involved. Glenn Burke, the brave and charismatic man who initiated the famous baseball high five, lived a complex life. His role in this gesture is a testament to his personality and his desire to connect. His story adds a layer of depth to a gesture that seems so lighthearted. In the end, maybe there is no single inventor of the high five. Maybe it was an idea whose time had come, maybe it was a confluence of different people trying out similar gestures, until one of them, the Baker-Burke moment, achieved critical mass. What we can say for sure is that the high five in its current form and widespread use owes a huge debt to those early athletes who dared to lift their hands and meet others in that special way. It is a simple gesture that has brought countless moments of joy, celebration, and connection to people all over the world. It is a reminder that sometimes the smallest actions can have the biggest impact. The high five is not just a hand slap. It is a celebration of human spirit, shared accomplishment, and the universal need to connect. And that, I think, is a pretty cool legacy for two hands meeting in the air.